We'll start with March, when the headlines were rewritten. Google confirmed they're experimenting with AI-generated headline rewrites in search results. So basically, they're deleting your carefully crafted title tags, replacing them with text written by their own AI. So Google claims this is just a small, narrow test, but I would also take that with a grain of salt. This is exactly the same kind of language they used right before they made AI rewritten headlines permanent in Google Discover. So why does this matter? Well, it completely strips away your editorial control. We're not talking about Google just pulling words from your page anymore. This AI can actually fabricate entirely new phrasing, sometimes completely flipping the sentiment of an article or stripping away critical context. And Google isn't displaying these AI headlines without a label or with a label. So if AI writes a terrible, misleading headline, your audience is going to blame the brand, not Google's algorithm. And this is particularly a problem for things like news publishers and outlets that rely on headlines to hook readers into their story. But Mike, I've got a question, and it's a question I've gotten before from other agencies in our partner club. Is it still worth writing your title tags and meta descriptions in this era if they're just going to be rewritten by Google?
So they have rewritten both of those for a long time. From my perspective, the meta description is not really worth writing because they're going to pull what's most relevant from the page, and that's going to yield a higher click-through rate. But as far as the page title, what you should be doing is ignoring the whole 60-character thing that's been the quote-unquote best practice for a number of years. We've done tests a number of times where we just take the top 3 keywords that are performing in Google Search Console and we append them to the end of the page title. And it always yields like a 10 to 20% increase in click-through rate. And the reason why is because Google just has more to choose from when it rewrites it. So I would say, you don't have to necessarily take the approach that we do, but you should provide more information about the page and the page title than you're used to. So then it has more to choose from. Now, what we don't know is, are they just like summarizing the page and then ignoring everything in your page title? In my experience, it's been that they reduce the page title, not that they like summarize the page. But if they're moving to summarizing the page, then you're just going to want to be more focused on what you're talking about on the page itself.
And I think it was on one of your webinars, if I'm remembering correctly, that we were talking about, or you were talking about how the page title is actually like a first entry point for AI search, right? When they're trying to deduce, okay, which page do I want to reference when I'm doing my query fan out and finding the chunk of content that I want to use, essentially.
Yeah.
So does that change things a little bit here? Like if they're rewriting your page title, are they accessing the Google page title? Are they accessing your original version? Like, how's that working?
So it depends on the source, right? Like if we're talking about Google specifically, then Google's going to see whatever they are providing, right? Like they're going to pull from their own search results. So whatever they have in their search results is what's being used there. Whereas if you're talking about a ChatGPT or Perplexity, there's different data sources that they get it from. So in some cases, it could be Google. In some cases, it could be Bing. In some cases, it could be Exa Search. And they all provide a different level of content. So like Exa Search specifically will extract like the first, 100 words from the page or something like that as well. So it's not just the page title that they're getting. The problem is you don't necessarily know which source they're getting it from. And so you want to like provide as much as you can within the environments that you can, or the tags that you can, I guess. So there's no easy answer to that. I would say the best way to do it would be a more like technical way, meaning that you detect what is the user agent that's accessing the page and then provide whatever is most valuable to them. Mm-hmm. So for Google, you would give like, let's say 100 character page title so that they can choose from it. If instead it's like Exa Search, okay, well, let's give, a reduced page title that is more aligned with the query that you're targeting. So it needs to be kind of a nuanced approach rather than just like a one size fits all for each channel.
And in order to serve a different experience to the different agents, just for the people on this call, is that done through Markdown? Is that done, like how do you do that?
Yeah, so there's a variety of ways you can do that. Let's just use like a simple example in like WordPress. There are like user agent detector plugins where you can specify a different version based on that user agent. So you can say for Bing, here's my page title. For Google, here's my page title. For ChatGPT, here's my page title. But basically what you'd have to do is say, okay, who is accessing this page? And a regular user just gets like, you know, whatever the regular user facing version is. But if it says ChatGPT or ChatGPT bot or whatever the user agent is, serve them that.
Okay. Would that not be considered cloaking in Google's eyes?
So cloaking has a very narrow definition. When you show something different to Google than what you show the user, right? So that is typically like what is on the page itself. Just having a different title tag, I don't think would be enough to trigger some sort of filter.
Okay, cool. Lots of knowledge. Love it.